easy. We'll just throw a bucket of wood. She said, no. And Cookie, there's a scene that's cut out. It's in the extras where they murder her mother and everything. And I wanted her to smash a TV while it was still playing with a hammer. And she said, I don't know what'll happen then. And I said, well, find out. But I was just thinking, we were never... I didn't ever, when we made movies, I was never on drugs. But when I wrote Pink Flamingos, I was definitely on pot, definitely. But it was a movie made at a time when Deep Throat had just come out. I had just been to the Manson trial. I mean, it was, some influences were, what's left? What is left that you can't do? So we just tried to make a joke on an exploitation film for art theaters. And this movie, the oddest thing about it, it did the best always in the richest neighborhoods, in the smartest audiences, and it did the worst in drive-ins and real grindhouses, because that audience knew we were making fun of the genre. I remember when I introduced Divine in full drag to Russ Meyer. He didn't know what to say. But she had big tits, so it was okay, really. So you look back on it, and I think, God, we were so young, and Divine wasn't even really that fat, I mean, they always say how large he was. And what troopers they were. They had to memorize pages of dialogue, too, in one take. And if one line, that wasn't improvised. So, and I was touchy about it, say the words, And so, I don't know, it's just like everybody. A bunch of kids makes their first crazy movie with their friends on a cell phone. It's the same thing. Only I had to have that big, heavy 16mm camera with a brace that weighed a ton. They didn't have video then or anything. That was the kind of camera they used to make the news. And so I paid this guy that paid cameramen from the TV stations to illegally take the cameras out on weekend and bring it to me. And they would show me how to work it, which I didn't know how to even work it. We had whole days where it would just come out black. And we shot for 20-hour days and stuff, really long days. And you see Edith sitting right out there in the playground. But my favorite story, I always think, the first day, she had trouble with her lines sometimes, so she'd memorize them and write them 100 times like in school. And I'd say, action, and she'd yell, eggs, eggs, eggs. Edie shakes the playpen. I said, no. Then she learned. I should have kept it in, it would have been artier.
Speaking of eggs, where did the eggs come from?
I don't know. We had an egg man. He wasn't cute or anything. I wasn't molested by the egg man. It wasn't some... I don't know, it just seemed weird. The same way I have in my new book, Liar Mouth, people are obsessed by trampolining. I just like people that find obsession in certain things, and I try to understand them when they're unfathomable to others. And Edie didn't really like eggs or dislike them, really, and neither do I. I like them, but obsessed by them.
I mean, and what happened? Did y'all eat that?
But let me forget about... Edie, Baby Doll was an influence because, Baby Doll was the movie the Catholic nuns told us we'd go to hell if we saw. So it was Carol Baker sucking her thumb in the playpen. Well, this was a very distant version to that. And maybe Edie was the first adult baby in a movie.
Oh, groundbreaking.
That's the only minority. Lock those fuckers up.
And that's you doing the narration, right?
Yes, because I wanted to get Mr. Ray, who was a notorious man that was on all the African-American stations, but he was white and he sold hair weaves. And his ad was, come in today, you'll be glad you did. And even Oprah interviewed him once, because when she was locally in Baltimore before she became famous, everybody made fun of Mr. Ray. He said, this is you. And then he sold, we sell eyelashes that don't come off when you go swimming. And so I wanted him to do it. And so I went to his salon, Mr. Ray's Hair Weave. And he said, absolutely, no. And so I tried to use his voice and did. He sounded exactly right. I did a good imitation. After he died, his son, whose name was Mr. J, and I didn't even know that, and I called myself Mr. J, and left me the Mr. Ray estate of all his ads. So I have all his ads, all the things he did. So that was a local joke, yes.
Well, I think your Baltimore accent is impeccable.
But now I had many actors, they always want to use, later movie stars, in Hollywood, they all want to use a Baltimore accent, and I had to fight against them. Because if they're going to have one, then everyone in the movie has to have them. And it's the one thing, a regional accent always is bad when you're trying to sell a movie around the world, unless it's mafia. That's okay, that accent.
Speaking of selling the movie, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about how this, because this got big distribution. This was
Well, big, it got, I'll tell you, I owe lots of it to Bob Shea, and Bob Shea had just started New Line Cinema, and their first movie, they took a Godard movie and called 1+1, but changed the name to Sympathy of the Devil because Mick Jagger's song was in it. And at the same time, they put out Reefer Madness, which was an exploitation film that they renamed and showed it to potheads. So I liked it. They had art and trash together. So I went to them with Multiple Maniacs, and they said, well, come back when you have something more polished. So if you can believe it, it was Pink Flamingos. And I sent it to Bob Shea, and he wrote back, okay, come to New York, don't bring your friends. And Bob Shea went on with that company for many, many years. He produced The Lord of the Rings. You know, he sold New Line for billions of dollars. And the big New York Times article just came out the other day about the Academy Award thing, and he texted me, that's my boy. Oh, very sweet, very sweet. So I stuck with them forever, you know, but then there was no internet, anything. There was just midnight. So we waited till the Elgin, which is now the Joyce Dance Theater. Every time I go by there, I have flashbacks. And they said, you can play it. And it opened everywhere else in the country. It opened in San Francisco, Baltimore, Provincetown, not everywhere, but I mean a few places that you could imagine it. And so I said, we have to wait till the Elgin, because El Topo was the big hit there. And when that finally closed, we got that position. 1 week, they said. 50 people came. The next week, they said, we'll give you 1 more week. And my life changed this night. I went with Bob Shea. We walked around the corner. The night he shot Bob Shea shot that preview. We walked on the corner, and the line was all the way around the block. So then we did it 1 night a week, then 2 nights a week. In LA, it played 10 years at the New Art Cinema, at least 1 night a week. But it never opened in 10 cities at once. There was never any national ad campaign. It was word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth. And we'd go to each city and start the disease like it's it was like COVID kind of, you know? So it was a very different kind of, today it would open at, 10 art theaters, and if it didn't perform on that Friday night, it would be over. So it's very different today, but there is still, the difference is every big studio is looking for the next crazy kid that's made a film that's gonna work. They're looking for it. They weren't looking for it when I did it, I promise you.
But they found it anyway.
No, later when I did Crybaby, Brian Grazier's told me that his wife accidentally, when he gave me the money to make a Hollywood movie, she rented Pink Flamingos. She said, you gave money to the man who made this? And it still works. It's probably worse now, maybe with political correctness. I don't know. You're not allowed to say happy birthday, fatso. You're not allowed to say that. I don't know why.
So you talked a little bit about this upcoming Academy Museum tribute that's happening.
Yeah.
Did you always knew that you'd break through like this?
No, I didn't, but I mean, I've kept this secret for 2 years because they've been working on it for 2 years. They've been through, I have a huge film archive at Wesleyan University. I have 3 hubs, so they've gone through it, and I've saved everything, except I don't have Divine's Cheater. I'm trying to find it. That's a fake vagina. And but we had one. I don't know who has it today. But I told Clint Eastwood about that. Because he's in the same film archive, and I said, just think, Divine's Cheater will be next to Dirty Harry's Badge. He was a good sport about it. I like him.
We have some time for some audience questions, so we'll try and get as many as we can. Right there, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, yell though.
Okay, I was really curious who the trans woman in the gazebo was.
Yeah.
That became a
I have a great story about her. Her name is Elizabeth Coffey. She was the first trans I knew. She had the full operation about 3 days after we shot that scene. And she said, I wanted to own that joke. Nobody was going to own it by me. She's been a friend forever. She was a hippie girl we knew in Baltimore. She was one of the first ones that ever did it at Hopkins University under Dr. Money, a famous doctor that became a huge scandal with Oprah against him and everything. But Elizabeth, I've made friends with him. This year, I gave my entire art collection to the Baltimore Museum, and they said 40 years of artwork, and they said, we want to name rotundas after. That's fine. I said, but I want the bathroom named after me. And they said, oh, that's real funny. Ha ha ha. I said, no, I mean it. And they did. And they made it the first no-sex bathroom, and Elizabeth came down cut the ribbon and took a piss in it to Christian in front of all the, dignitaries, news teams, and everything. She was great. She's great. She still fights now for transgender senior housing. She's great. She's great. And she's in Female Trouble. You see her at the end with Devon, and she shows a little bit of her new vagina, just to keep you posted.
Not a cheater.
Hi, I love your movies so much.
Thank you.
Hairspray is, I have a special connection with that with my mom. She showed it to me when I was younger, and so it's just such a special movie to me.
Well, that's great, and I'm glad she didn't show you Pink Flamingos.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, what advice would you have for a young queer person?
To not just be queer. Nowadays, who cares? Everybody gay's not enough. It's a good start, but hang around with everybody. Don't be a separatist in any way. Just startle people, gay or straight. What you have to do is think of the people that are a little cooler than you, that are ahead of you in success, to make them nervous. That's what you have to do, right? And sure, it's easier. The gay thing is completely much more open and everything. But what I'm against now is everybody's fighting. I say this in my show. All gay people are fighting trans, lesbians. We all used to get along. Now we're arguing with each other. We're weakening our pervert brand. We got to stick together and fight, and do things nobody thought of. I think gay men and lesbians should start having sex.
Question right there, please.
Lizzo. I would change all the races, Lizzo. Pee Wee Herman would be great as Donald Dasher. Mink, Rosie DePalma. You could go through the whole thing. Isabelle Huppert, she could play anybody in any of them. Justin Bieber's Crackers, maybe.
So I kind of a double-pronged question about the kind of bookends of your career. So your early stuff, like Mondo Trash Show and all the early short films, do you ever see, a way that those will be released again? Because as of now, there's no way to...
They can't be released. You're talking about Hag in a black leather jacket and Eat Your Makeup. No, because of the music rights. If you saw that credit roll on the end, that was $200,000 that cost to pay for that music that New Line finally did. Because we hadn't paid for that music. I didn't know you had to. I maybe knew. I don't know, but I just pretended I didn't know. And so that's what I tell every young person: pay for your music. Now it's $35,000 a needle drop. If you play it twice, $70,000. And how we ever got them to say yes? Because they always said the worst thing when you try to make the deal, you have to find not the singer, you have to find the writer of the song and the distributor of the song. They usually hate each other by this point. And then they say, what's the context? Oh. That is the question that pails my heart. So luckily I have always somebody else do it and not use my name and everything. But now it's even more complicated. If you didn't have... for all media or everything you have to do. And now they're trying to take away some copyrights of music in the 50s. So it's very, very complicated. And if you're making a documentary, one lesson you really should know is if you're shooting in a scene and it's a bar and there's something playing on the jukebox and you don't have 2 tracks, you'll never be able to use that footage because you have to pay for the rights to the music. And I know this has kept lots of documentaries down. So I don't think, I always joke the Criterion should release Hag in a black leather jacket in 70 millimeter and show it at IMAX. Or Roman Candles upside down and call it Dogma 24. Do I what?
Do you see yourself in the director's chair?
Well, if it is, I can't talk about it because there is some things brewing, but it's in my contract that I can't talk about, so I don't want to fuck it up.
Other questions? Oh, sorry, all the way on the side, please.
Yeah. So me and my brother here, we love the list you put out at the end of the year with all your favorite films.
Yeah, it's an art form, yeah.
We want to get a bit ahead on the schedule. See, I'm talking to the Wizard of Oz, I'm freaking out over here. Have you seen anything good lately?
Yeah, let me think. I really love this new movie that's coming out called Peter Von Kant, while Francois Ozon remade Petra Von Kant for men. And if you're young and you haven't seen Fassbender, really go watch him again. He's really, really great. So I've liked that movie a lot. That's the movie I've liked the most that I've seen recently.
There's another question up front, I thought right here. Yes.
I was going to ask if you've
if there are any filmmakers working today that you feel are in your lineage.
Well, I don't think anybody copies me, and if they do, it's bad usually. But I don't think they do. But I love Gaspar Noé, who I know shows here a lot. I love Francois Ozon. I love Bruno Dumont. I love European feel-bad directors. I like to come out feeling miserable, tortured by a movie. That's my kind of good night. I feel good in real life. I don't expect a movie to make me feel good. You show a lot of them here.
We do. We don't like y'all to feel good either. So anytime you want to feel bad, come on down.
Filth as enjoyable today?
Well, filth to me, it became the first word, I never said the word camp. To me, that was like old queens in an antique shop talking about Rita Hayworth movies. But, which is fine, but it wasn't my scene. At first, we talked about trash, and that got used up. Then it became, I don't know, it was trash. But filth was more of a punk word, and so I still like filth. I still like the punk world. I'm hosting for the 5th year a big punk rock festival in Oakland every year called Mosswood Madness. So I think, is it harder? It's harder because, well, now the censorship is so different. When I was young, it was dumb white men. Now it's rich, smart, young people. I haven't been censored by them at all. People always say, how come you haven't had that? Because I make fun of things I love, and I think that's the biggest difference, and I make fun of myself. But doing these shows, I've been on tour a lot lately, and one question I got was, one I never had, they said, like, well, how did you avoid cancer? That's an odd question, but it's a fair one. I smoked, I'm 76, and I'm going into all this, and they all start laughing. But I misheard him. He said, how did you avoid being canceled? And I'm going into this whole thing about cancer and cigarettes. And the other best question I had, a girl said, my father told me he almost went home with you in a bar one night. I said, tell him hi.
So, people, you've been called a lot of things.
Yeah. But all favorable. All the
Yes.
negative things were favorable. The meanest one I ever got called, the New York Times once said, he might think he's the Russ Meyer of the underground, but he's the Frank Perry. I have nothing against Frank Perry, but I guess that was supposed to be mean.
Do you have a favorite title? Pope of Trash? Is that
Well, the William Burroughs called me that. Come on, that's like being anointed from heaven, right? Yeah, I like the people's pervert was a nice one. Make me feel young. Yeah.
We've got time for maybe just one more question. I'll take this one right there, please. Yes, you.
So you gave my parents a tour of Baltimore in like the 90s. It was always my favorite story. You like drove them around, you like a whole tour. No
Why did I do that? I mean, I must have met them or something. I would just stand on the corner. $10.
That's a deal.
I might. You never know. Yeah.
They just ran into you and you drove them around. And, like,
Was it your father who almost went home with me?
your stories like, you host like New Year's parties and you always do really cool interviews. Like, how do you find the time to just like stay with the community and like?
Well, I live, Baltimore is still my home. I've never left there. That's where I live. I've had an apartment in New York forever. I have one in San Francisco, and I rent a place every summer in Provincetown. So I always say 4 sets of underpants is a key to happiness. But that's how if you're a writer, that's what you have to do. You have to be in the real world. You have to watch people. You have to listen to people, spy on people, ask people questions. People say to me, why do you always asking questions? Because I need information. I want to understand how people live when I can't understand why they live that way. And that's what I always make movies about. People that wouldn't get along in the real world or be the hero, but when you come to me, you're going to come in a world that I'm going to take you and hopefully meet people that you would feel uncomfortable with, but we try to understand how happy they are.
So before we close, I just want to talk about your novel. So
it's called Liar Mouth. It's as fucked up as this movie. Let me tell you something. It's the weirdest thing I've written. Here's the trailer. Marcia Sprinkle, suitcase thief, scammer, children and dogs hate her. Her own family wants her dead. She's on the run with a big chip on her shoulder. They called her Liar Mouth until one insane man made her tell the truth. There it is. It's for sale here tonight.
Well, I want to thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me back. We've been here for all the Criterion releases, and it's
It's
been really nice.
always a pleasure.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone at Criterion for this beautiful work that you see on screen.
Yeah.
I want to thank John for coming up with that gorgeous idea.
Well, the damage that produced that. No, I'm fine. Thank you, thank you.
If you're staying for the signing, we're going to reset. We got a couple more instructions, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.